Okay, it just says preparing to live stream meeting.
And now it says live. So I think we're live. Hey, everybody. Kelsey here. Happy Wednesday today. We are on for our weekly Q&A, myself with Nicole. Nicole, thank you as always for coming on with me. So you guys, today we're doing it just a little bit differently than usual because a lot of the questions we've been getting, they're pointing all towards the same thing. But I think that there is a fundamental kind of gap as far as being clear on what they're actually wanting to know. So like I'm getting a lot of questions just about, how to have a successful school year, parents saying like, I'm working full time, like my kids are gonna like, so there's just been a lot of kind of overarching things like that. So for today, I want to address these questions and just get really, really clear on the landscape, okay, of this academic year, because it is super hard, arguably impossible to do your best, okay, for you to do your best supporting your child, for your child to do their best if they're not totally clear on the context in which they're operating. Okay, so we want to come on today and just speak to the key players and to the roles and responsibilities for this upcoming school year, okay? So first, and actually, you know what, it's the same for pre-COVID too, the roles and responsibilities haven't changed, but they're more important than ever to understand in light of COVID and in light of whether you're back in the classroom or doing a hybrid or fully remote learning. So let's start real simple with the key players, okay? So we've got teachers, we have parents, and we have students, okay? So triad here of our main players. Now, all of these roles are equally important. Okay, I just want to, just from the outset, because I just, don't come at me, okay? They're all equally important. That is not up for debate, okay? Teachers, parents, students all play extremely critical roles in student success and having, a happy and successful school year. That said, they're responsible for very different things, okay? I want to start with teachers. You guys, teachers are responsible for delivering curriculum. Okay, so whether that's math, English, chemistry, biology, they're responsible for telling your child what they need to know for that given subject. Okay, period. Teachers are not responsible for helping make sure that your kid learns, that they're staying organized, that they're on top of their work, that they're submitting things on time. That is not a teacher's job. And I want to make this as clear as possible. And I'm on with a teacher, a certified teacher, who can give the absolute thumbs up that is true. And there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of people, parents and students, who think that teachers have this catch-all job of basically making sure their kid learns, and that nothing could be further from the truth. Okay, and that can be very tough for some people to process, but the faster you wrap your head around it and really understand that, the faster you can set your child up to succeed and to really think and learn and achieve to their potential. Okay, so that's just number one. Teachers are delivering curriculum. Okay, that is their responsibility. Before we move on to the students, parents rather, anything to add about the teachers? I feel like I've been very blunt, which is, I think, important and necessary, but anything to add, Nicole, as far as the teacher's responsibility?
Yeah, for sure. Exactly what you said, Kelsey. Teachers' jobs are to deliver curriculum. And, speaking in a general perspective, teachers want their students to do well, but it's not the teacher's job to manage, their students' academics. Sometimes at the end of the day, they'll check calendars of students who might need that extra assistance or, sign off on agendas, but it's not their job to make sure everything's plugged into their calendar and making sure that, they're on track with their, when they're working on their essay, when they want their essay to be done, when they're going to edit their essay. It's their job to help the students and, assign that essay, but it's not necessarily their job to make sure that they're, always on track with their work.
Yep, absolutely. And I love what you said as far as, because there are so many teachers that go above and beyond. with their role,
for
and they will
sure.
offer support. And if that's your kids' teachers, then like you are very lucky and that's bonus, but that's not to be expected or relied upon. And there's
Exactly.
nothing, yeah. And for students who have been lucky with really good teachers who do go that extra mile, and then they go into a, you know, usually as they're getting older, right? Grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, and the teachers stop doing that and they find themselves at a loss because they've been reliant on that when it's not actually in their role. So that's just number one. The teachers are delivering curriculum. They are not responsible for making sure your child is learning or achieving to their potential. So as far as a parent's role and responsibility with respect to the academic piece, there's a, there's a lot of dynamics here, but I'll keep it simple. Parents, the best thing that you can do for your child for the school year is twofold. It's making sure that they understand their role first and foremost, because again, you guys, that as absolutely ground zero. If kids do not understand what they're responsible for, if they don't understand what they're capable of, then school's going to be harder. It's going to be more of a struggle. They're not going to like it as much as they could if they have that clarity on how they fit in, right, within their own academic career and within, you know, teachers versus parents. So making sure that your child understands their own role and their responsibility. And sometimes even just like that, like a lot of most of our students, I think, actually don't, even when we say that, being like, well, teachers aren't responsible for your learning. And they're like, what? Like, yeah, they are. Like, she's like, most kids think that if they show up and get taught to, their job is done. And we'll talk more about this in a second, because we're going to be talking for the most part about the student's role. But making sure as a parent, making sure that your child understands their role as a student, as a learner, is huge. And then the second big part, making sure they have the tools to actually thrive, right? And if those two things are covered, then that alone is going to set you up for a successful school year, regardless of whether you're doing hybrid or online or whatnot. So I'll leave it at that. Okay. So parents, just making sure your kid understands the context, understands their role, understands what they're capable of, and then making sure that they do have the tools, right? Whether it's, we're talking about the skills, the critical thinking, time management, the actual like tactical, do they know how to use a calendar? You know, like a lot of kids think, you know, well, I plugged something into a calendar and that magically fixes things. And it's like, no, like that transaction is not what we're talking about when we're talking about tools. Do you have the skill to use the calendar as a means of thinking strategically, right? And like all of these other pieces. So making sure that your child has those tools to stand on their own 2 feet to do their work. And this, I think, ties into parents, what you are not responsible for, and leading into our kids. You are not responsible for driving your kids' achievement. Okay? Especially when we're getting into middle school and high school, it is not your responsibility to make sure that your kids are getting their stuff done. And I can hear a lot of our parents already. I know, because I hear you. I talk with so many of you like every week, where it's like, but if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. And these are probably two of the most common things that we hear and that we see and we understand, right? We help solve these problems every day. So I get it. The tension between, I shouldn't have to be the one driving this. My kid is 14, 15, 16. They're old enough to be doing this. But if I don't drive it, then it's not going to get done. And that creates even bigger problems. Okay. So I hear that. And you guys, those two things though, what we talk about, if you're making sure that your child understands their role and you are giving them the tools and making sure that they know how to use them, then that problem by and large goes away. Okay.
For
And
sure.
this, yeah. And Nicole, before we go into the students, because this is, I mentioned earlier, you know, all three of these roles, parents, teachers, students, they're all equally important, but the student role is by far the most powerful. Students have absolute final say over what kind of year they have and over how well they do and over how they feel and over all of that. There is, teachers and parents have nowhere near the amount of power that the students have in what type of academic year, what type of learner they are, how they experience that. But Nicole, before we totally dive into the students, anything as far as the parents go?
Just, you know, even like using an example as, you know, studying for a test. You know, the teacher will deliver that material, will assign the test date for the student. The parent can, you know, help by asking, you know, did you study? Do you want to set up a time to study? But the only person who can really actually, you know, who needs to be the one to sit down and, you know, actually understand what they've been taught and learn what they've been taught, that is out of the control of the teacher and the parent. That's entirely on the student to actually, sit down and do the work to be able to be ready for that test.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, and we tell our kids this all the time, right? It's like, we can show you how to do everything, but at the end of the day, you're the one who gets to decide. And so for parents, I'm always tempted to say moms because it's usually moms. We do have a few dads in here though. But parents, if you're going to spend time talking to your kids about school, you're going to spend time feeling like, come on, get your work done, or feeling sad as far as like, how can I help them? There's all sorts of different ways that you will invest time and energy into your child's learning and into their schooling and into you all want them to stand on their own 2 feet as a confident learner, right? Who can really do their best and who knows how to do their best and who understands the value of learning and school. Our biggest recommendation, because we've seen that this is just by and large has the most positive effect and it can affect the most positive change within the household and for your child and for you as a parent, right? Just giving you peace of mind, to invest that time and energy into making sure that they are set up. Okay. And I totally understand how frustrating that can be to have that shift from being at them, right? Of like, why didn't you do this or get this done? Or why won't you just, all of that, and into getting at that root of how can we get them set up? Okay. So if you're investing your time and energy for your kids' schooling, do it in a way where they understand themselves as learners and they understand, they know what the tools are and they know how to use them. Okay. And then that will make your role a lot more enjoyable as being able to facilitate and support, as opposed to feeling like you have to be at them all the time or feeling worried about how are they going to do, and all these other things. And then let's talk about the student. So like we said, you guys, the students have the ultimate role. They are responsible for their learning. They have full ownership over what they learn. So think about, and even this we can touch on, like teaching versus learning. Think about what we said about teachers. They are teaching your child. Being taught to does not equate to learning. That alone, helping your child understand that is so valuable, because we have so many students that they think that is true. If they show up for class and they listen, if they get their homework done, right? They're done. They're good. And we know that that's the worst way to do school. It is so ineffective, and it's leaving so much potential on the table. Okay. So shifting away, to help them shift away from, I'm just a student getting my work done, to managing their academics. Okay. And understanding very clearly that, listening to something and completing a worksheet or reading something over because, they're studying and they're reading it over, that is pales in comparison to, first of all, how much more interesting school can be when you're looking at it holistically, when they're thinking of themselves as a learner and a thinker and a time manager, and like way more interesting pieces than just a student who has to get stuff done, right? For them to understand that they are responsible for that learning, and that when they're sitting down with something, it's not this one-way passive consumption of something, that it is, when they're engaging in their work, it is a two-way street between them and the material. That is the learning. The teacher delivering stuff to them and telling them stuff, that does not equate to the type of learning we're talking about. Okay, it is a prerequisite, right? And it's helpful. And the better, we have some amazing teachers who are doing incredible things with making their content so engaging as possible and all of these things, but students to learn it, understand why it matters, and arguably most importantly, to understand and build out an understanding of the skills that they are using to process that content. Okay, so whether this is math or English or Spanish or French or a language or a science, it doesn't matter, for them to build out that internal frame of reference for what does it feel like for me when I'm thinking critically, when I'm strategizing holistically, right? I'm managing my course load. I'm identifying the different moving pieces of, within a subject. I've got a worksheet, I've got this test, I've got to read this chapter, okay, within subjects and then between subjects. I've got math here, I've got science here. And then even broader scale of how is school fitting in with my life, family, friends, right? So to really have that strategic management piece with their school. And this is whether your child is in grade 6, grade 7, grade 11, fourth year university, it applies. Okay. So as far as the student's role, I'll also just qualify one important thing. I hear often, with the best of intentions, a lot of parents tell me what their kids can and can't do. They'll say, well, my kid can't do XYZ. They can't learn that way. And listen, you know your kid, right? You know your kid inside out. I can tell you from a learning perspective and from what we have seen day in, day out, years and years and years working with thousands and thousands of families, that whatever a kid thinks they can do or can't do is the truth. Okay, so if we put the bar here for our kids, they'll go there, right? If we show them how to do it and we tell them this is as far as you can go, this is what you can do. We raise the bar here, they'll go there. Okay, so a lot of parents and a lot of students especially can feel a bit of like, be like, that's not on me. Like, I don't have all that responsibility. And it can be seen as a lot to put on a kid. But you guys, I really want to stress this because it's, when you get this right, it changes everything. It is quite literally giving them power. It is empowering that they have voice and choice over how they experience their academics. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be, I'm never going to use this, it's so boring. That there is a better way and that they get to choose that for themselves. Not for you, not for their teachers, for them as an individual human in this world who wants to have a happy, successful life, who wants to learn and eventually earn to their potential, right? So this is not something that is scary or stressful. This is something that enabling them to understand the power that they have over their day-to-day life and over how they experience their schoolwork, that it's not like, well, school sucks, or like, bah, I can't get A's, or grades don't, like all of these really limiting things, that they can choose to have different beliefs and that they can choose to have a different experience. And it really is that simple. And students, I tell you, you guys, students respond so beautifully when they're invited to step up. So that I feel like I could talk for ages about this, and that is not what we're doing today. But I want to make that so clear. We've got our teachers delivering the curriculum, parents making sure that their kids are set up, that they understand themselves as learners, that they understand what they're capable of, that they have the tools to do their very best. And then for students, it is their choice to use those tools and to actually decide what's what. And that's probably one of the best things that we see when kids, they process this, they get this. For most kids, it's like, oh, it's new to them, right? They've never been given such autonomy and been invited to stand on their own 2 feet and been shown how to do so. And then what I love is when they're able to do that, and then they get to choose, right? Like, do you want straight A's? For some kids, that's really, they value that, they want that. Other students, it's like, I'm okay with some B's and here's why, but they understand what's needed, like the scope and magnitude of work that equals an A versus a B versus a C, right? And importantly, like how they feeling smart, feeling confident in getting those grades, and they get to choose. So it's not that I wish I could get A's or I wish school didn't have to feel so hard, that they have the choice to get out of that. And for some students, they see this and they're like, yeah, I know how to do that now, and I'm going to prioritize my athletics. And I understand that I can come back to the academics. Like, we see kids make very interesting choices, but to make sure that they have the tools to make the choice for themselves, so that if they want, they want to work less, or they don't want to have late nights scrambling to get caught up, or they don't want to feel so bored all the time, right? Or disengaged or whatever. They want to feel more motivated, that they understand that they do have the choice to change that for themselves. It's incredibly empowering, and it's awesome to see what kids really start to articulate and start to think about when they've had that space to even like explore their values relative to school, and like, okay, well, I want an A. Why do I want an A? Like, to really unpack those things and then be able to make that happen. Okay, as far as our student role, Nicole, things to add or nuance?
This is more something to add a combination of the parents and the students' role together. Just building on what you had mentioned before, if the student believes based on what they're told that, they can only get here based on obstacles that might be in their way, such as a learning disability, or you're an elite athlete, so you have all these practices and you can only reach here. If you're only going to believe that that's as far as you can, strive to be, you're not going to get here. So if we, help students, if parents will help their students see their potential and say, you know what, you can get here despite everything that might be in your way. It doesn't mean that you can't work hard to, climb that ladder and get closer to the top of your potential. Then if there's not that support there, it's very unlikely that they'll get over this plateau of, believing that they're down here when they could be up here.
Yeah, absolutely, Nicole. I love that. And I think that really illustrates, you guys, in general with school. And this is at core to why the school system is so broken, because for the most part, kids are not using schoolwork the way it's meant to be used, right? When they're going through those motions, and especially like, as if you're seeing them, they're doing fine, or they're getting A's and B's, or you're not clear on how they're getting those grades or on how they feel about themselves, or there's so many dynamics at play. But at the end of the day, schoolwork can be a vehicle for growth and for introspection and for kids to genuinely explore what they're capable of. Most kids do not, the concept of potential, they hear it a lot, right? But they don't actually know what that means in practice. And schoolwork, every assignment, every test, it's repeated opportunities for them to truly connect with themselves and get to know themselves as a thinker, and to really stretch of being like, well, what am I capable of? Like, how good can it get? How far can I go? And that's just the number one thing. And for as far as just like the household, right? With having school, understand that school, it's not just about being a student, getting your work done and getting grades. School is a vehicle, okay, for becoming a learner, okay, for becoming a thinker, a time manager, communicator, all of these things. And to actively, explicitly be using schoolwork as that vehicle for growth and as that vehicle for introspection. And this, one of the silver linings of COVID, I hate to say, because COVID has been so terrible in so many ways, but that at-home learning piece that has obviously been illuminated for everyone who has been off school, right, last spring. This is an unprecedented opportunity for kids to connect with themselves as learners and to really step in, to take greater responsibility, and importantly, to feel excited about it, okay, and to feel self-motivated about, oh my gosh, I get the chance to do this. I get the chance to step up and do this thing. And yeah, I'll end it with that for now. But just as far as overall, and this is something that all parties, right, everyone, I think is trying to do, and I'll just highlight it briefly. There are a lot of bad things, okay, about COVID and about the school year, and I get that. Focusing on constraints, focusing on barriers, that is going to be the reality day to day, right? If we can help our kids focus on the opportunities and focus on the good things and focus on what is in their control, that is going to be where they put their energy day to day, okay? So really helping them understand how much power and autonomy they have over having a good year, especially when so many kids are feeling hard done by, and so many kids, right? And they're feeling very disempowered. A lot of our students are. There's a lot out of their control. They don't want to wear masks to school. They don't want to have to stay at home. They don't want to be on, the screen for all of their classes. So to really focus on what they do have control over is more important than ever. And they have so much power, you guys. So just keep that bar high. And I think that was it for today, as far as just outlining the roles and responsibilities, because we've been just getting a lot of different questions that one way or another all kind of lead to, let's make sure that we understand what teachers are responsible for, parents, what you're responsible for. And it's not being the driver of their achievement. It is supporting them to understand and have the tools to drive their own achievement. Okay. So, and you guys, if you have questions about this, as always, Nicole will post the link. Book a call. Okay. We literally do this day in, day out. We're really good at it. And I love strategizing with parents. A lot of you watching this, I think I've spoken with, and just getting super clear on what does this look like for your family, right? How can we use what we know to create a very positive school year for everybody, okay? Where kids are feeling supported and good and smart. Parents are feeling they don't have to be nagging, they don't have to worry, well, I'm going to be working, how can I do it? Okay, to just create the environment to have a really positive year. So let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, I know that there were a handful of questions that we are not getting to today. We will address them next week. If you have other questions, message me, put them in our group. We love your questions. The more context, the better. And that's it for today. Nicole, as always, thank you for coming on with me for a Q&A.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure, my pleasure, everybody in this group's pleasure. And that's it, you guys, everybody. I hope you all have a really great day. I hope you're all keeping safe, and we will see you next week.
Take care. Bye, everyone.